That feeling is, I think, pretty universal. You're in the middle of a meeting, or maybe you're just settling down for the evening, and suddenly your phone buzzes.
Oh, yeah.
It's the bank.
Yeah.
Or, a credit card statement notification. And immediately, that familiar not just tightens in your stomach.
It's that instant, overwhelming dread.
Exactly. It tells you, even before you look at the balance, that the numbers, well, they aren't adding up.
It's the 3 a.m. wake-up call, isn't it?
It is.
You start running the mental calculation, and you realize the salary you got 2 weeks ago is basically gone.
Yeah.
And you're left with that paralyzing fear of what's next? How are you going to cover next week's expenses?
If any of that sounds familiar to you, you are in the right place. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are not here to offer generic budgeting advice or tell you to stop buying coffee.
We're not doing that.
Our mission is to take a really deep analytical look at financial pressure, the psychological toll it takes, and synthesize the practical strategies from our sources that genuinely help you regain control, mentally and economically.
This deep dive is really about opening the window and just breathing again.
Yes.
And that's so important because this is fundamentally a mental health discussion, just framed by economics. Our sources confirm that this pressure is absolutely massive. It affects almost everyone, regardless of their income.
So the goal today is to give you a framework to confront that stress head on, to understand it, and then to deploy a plan to start separating your emotional state from your bank statement.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this psychological aspect first, because that seems to be the foundation of everything.
It is.
We aren't just talking about having low funds. We're defining financial pressure as a chronic, debilitating, well, a psychological state.
It's a permanent feeling of insecurity.
Mhm.
It dictates your mood, your choices, even how well you sleep at night.
And what's really critical here, something our research just hammered home, is that this is not benign stress.
Not at all. Financial pressure is consistently identified as one of the largest global contributors to things like anxiety disorders and even clinical depression.
So when your brain perceives this persistent threat to your survival, which is how it registers economic insecurity, it diverts massive resources to what? Crisis management.
Precisely. And that degrades what psychologists call your executive function. It makes rational, long-term planning almost impossible. You literally can't think clearly about your budget because your brain is stuck in fight or flight mode.
And that stress is just relentlessly magnified by everything around us, what we've been calling the consumption trap.
Oh, absolutely. The Instagram effect.
Right. You open a social media app, and you're not just seeing your friends. You're seeing this aspirational, algorithmically curated content that presents a very specific, very high-cost lifestyle.
Everyone is traveling. Everyone's buying a new house, renovating.
It creates this immediate, pervasive feeling of being behind, or worse, being a failure.
And the source material is clear on this.
Yeah.
The algorithm is designed to foster that comparison.
Yeah.
It's not just keeping up with the Joneses next door anymore. It's keeping up with millions of perfectly filtered, wealthy strangers all over the world. And that gap, that cognitive dissonance between your reality and that digital projection, it's a huge catalyst for distress.
Which funnels you directly into what we're calling the emotional spending loop.
Mm-hmm.
You feel inadequate because of the comparison. You feel stressed because of the numbers. And to temporarily silence that feeling, what do? You buy
A
something.
new gadget, an expensive meal, some new clothes, anything that gives you that immediate but very fleeting hit of dopamine.
It's a self-medication strategy, isn't it?
That's the key mechanism. It provides instant relief, a temporary sense of control. But that emotional bandage is just, it's so fragile. The new thing requires payment, which increases debt, which then intensifies the original pressure.
It's a spiral.
It's a catastrophic feedback spiral. We see it in the data over and over again.
Yeah.
The anxiety feeds the spending, and the spending feeds the anxiety.
So, okay, if that's the diagnosis, where do we possibly start the healing?
Well, our sources, almost across the board, insisted that the very first step has to be psychological, not financial.
Before you touch a single spreadsheet.
Before anything, you have to engage in what we can call the self-worth separation.
Explain that.
You have to internalize this one truth. I am not a failure. I am simply mismanaging resources, or I am in a tough economic spot, and this is temporary.
That sounds simple, but I imagine it's a massive cognitive shift.
It is. You have to draw a firm, non-negotiable line between your self-worth, your intrinsic value as a person, and your bank balance.
Because if you tie those two together, every financial setback becomes this catastrophic existential crisis.
Exactly.
By separating them, you shift from asking, why am I failing, to a much more actionable question. What resources do I need to manage better?
Right. You reclaim your autonomy, your psychological safety net.
Okay, let's pivot now. Because the sources offered a really elegant framework for moving from that insight to, immediate actionable relief.
The triple emergency plan.
Right. If the diagnosis is psychological stress, the next step has to be immediate action to stop the bleeding.
This whole plan is focused on speed and psychological stability. This isn't long-term retirement planning. This is about getting enough immediate control to lower your heart rate.
So strategy 1, face the monster. We're talking about the financial audit.
A lot of people in this situation dread opening their bank app. They dread the credit card statements because the fear is of the unknown total.
The numbers feel limitless, abstract, crushing.
So the action here is a powerful conversion. You have to stop dealing with abstract dread and start dealing with concrete facts. The sources advise, and I love this, bringing out paper and a pen.
Not a fancy app, something physical.
Something physical, and you write down every single debt and every single fixed expense. Rent, utilities, loan payments fixed, groceries, gas, entertainment variable.
Why is that physical act so powerful?
When you turn that vague, crushing fear into black and white numbers on a page, you transform the threat. It stops being this unbeatable monster and it becomes a quantifiable problem.
You're replacing panic with knowledge.
And knowledge is the prerequisite for a plan. Even if the numbers are scary, they are finite. They have an end.
Okay, moving to strategy 2. This one targets impulse spending, which is so often fueled by the stress we just talked about. It's called the 24-hour rule.
Simple, but incredibly effective. The rule is any purchase above a certain amount. And our sources suggested setting a pretty modest baseline, say $50.
Just to catch those little daily impulse buys.
Exactly. That purchase has to be postponed for 24 hours. No exceptions.
And this is rooted in cognitive science, right? It's not just about willpower.
Not at all. Impulsive buying is driven by the limbic system, the emotional instant gratification part of your brain. When you enforce that delay, you give your prefrontal cortex the rational, planning part-time to catch up and chime in.
And the result is pretty staggering. The sources suggest something like 80% of the impulse desire just vanishes after that delay.
It does.
Wait, 80%? That seems exceptionally high. Are there specific caveats there?
Well, that figure comes from studies tracking discretionary non-essential spending. And it holds up because most impulse spending is fueled by a temporary emotional need, boredom, stress, inadequacy.
Ah.
Once that 24-hour window passes, the emotional intensity dissipates. You might still want the item, but you don't need it to solve that immediate emotional problem anymore. It's an incredible buffer.
Okay. So finally, strategy 3. This targets the most overwhelming part for many people, debt. Specifically, using the snowball method.
If you're listening and you're staring at multiple credit cards, store accounts, loans, the natural instinct is to scatter your efforts. Pay a little extra everywhere.
And that just paralyzes you. It feels like you're running on a financial treadmill and getting nowhere.
The snowball method advises the exact opposite. You focus all your available extra resources on paying off the smallest debt first. You only pay the minimum on all the others.
But hang on, doesn't that defy mathematical logic? Shouldn't we, for pure efficiency, always tackle debt with the highest interest rate first?
You're absolutely right on the pure math. That's called the avalanche method, and it is mathematically sound for minimizing total interest paid. However,
there's a however.
We are not dealing with pure math here. We're dealing with high financial pressure and the need for psychological relief. The sources prioritize the great psychological victory of the snowball method for anyone who feels completely overwhelmed.
The psychological payoff, what is that specifically?
When you eliminate that first small debt, you get a tremendous, measurable win. You physically get to cross a debt off your list.
Right.
That surge of positive momentum and self-efficacy, that feeling of, I can do this, is far more critical for sticking with it long-term than optimizing a few percentage points of interest at the start.
So momentum trumps optimization, especially when you feel hopeless.
For someone feeling hopeless, momentum is everything.
That distinction, prioritizing psychological momentum over pure math, that brings us perfectly to our final segment. Mindset before money.
This is the philosophical pivot. It's what makes the change sustainable.
As one of our sources put it very eloquently, money is a great servant, but a bad master.
That's it, isn't it? If you serve money, you're always dependent on it. If money serves you, you dictate its movements. And the key to reducing that pressure is fundamentally changing how you define wealth.
True wealth is not the abundance of possessions, but the scarcity of needs.
The fewer your needs, the less power money has over you. And this concept of conscious, intentional living is beautifully crystallized in a practice from Japan.
Kakaibo?
We're talking about Kakaibo. Literally, it translates to household financial ledger. But it is so much more than a bookkeeping exercise.
It's the Japanese art of saving through intentionality.
Its core idea is not about deprivation or being harsh with yourself. It's about conscious spending.
So how does it turn budgeting from, a punitive chore into something mindful?
Kakaibo asks you to categorize your spending not just by type, but by intention. So you have 4 main categories: survival your rent, food, necessities, optional non-essential wants, culture books, museums, things that enrich your life, and unexpected repairs, emergencies. This structure forces you to look at every transaction and ask if it aligns with your values.
And the most powerful tool within Kakaibo is this one simple but profound guiding question you have to ask yourself before every purchase.
Will this item add real value to my life a month from now?
Wow.
That question just cuts through emotional spending instantly. If you can't honestly and quickly answer yes, if the item is just a temporary distraction or a status symbol, then the purchase is identified as low value. It turns financial tracking into a kind of meditation.
You're reflecting on whether you're spending money on the life you actually want to live.
Exactly.
And this leads to the ultimate benefit that our sources really emphasize. Living below your income isn't stinginess. It's not just being frugal. It is fundamentally a practice of generating personal freedom.
It's freedom from that awful, gripping end-of-month anxiety. But even more powerfully, it's freedom from dependency. Freedom from having to tolerate a terrible boss or stay in a job you hate just because you desperately need that paycheck on Friday.
Financial security is personal autonomy.
Realized, yes.
So in closing, we know that taking this first step, translating this discussion into actual action, is always harder than the analysis itself. And we acknowledge that, for many, economic circumstances can be genuinely tough.
Of course.
But here's the long-term perspective to carry with you from this deep dive. Financial recovery doesn't start with a massive windfall. It starts with saving one single coin. It starts with making one clear decision to say no to one unnecessary expense.
And the psychological healing is just as vital. You have the power to change this narrative by starting small. Focus on that self-worth separation. Don't let money or the worry about it steal your smile today.
We want to leave you with one final provocative thought, building on Kakaibo and that emotional spending loop.
Think about the last time you bought something you immediately regretted.
That was likely a purchase designed to solve an emotional problem.
So next time, instead of buying that item, what small, free activity could you substitute that would give you genuine peace, not just temporary distraction?
And ask yourself this: what is the single worst financial habit you are currently trying to eliminate?
Just think about it, identify it, and then commit to using that 24-hour pause before you engage with it again.
That is the starting line. Until next time, we wish you financial peace and psychological clarity.